In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro described the meeting in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a historic and as a triumph for the Bolivarian peace diplomacy. In Palestine, the Israeli occupation army continues to intensify its aggression against the civilian population and hospitals in Gaza. In Serbia, more than 6 million citizens are called to the polls to vote this Sunday's early parliamentary elections. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, described the meeting in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as historic and a triumph for the Bolivarian peace diplomacy. During an extended Security Council with the military high command, the Venezuelan president pointed out that it was fair and necessary to develop the consultative referendum for the Guyana Essequibo so that the population could determine the terms of the future of the Essequibo. In addition, he emphasized that they have kept on overcoming the test to consolidate peace and internal security in the country. Maduro also highlighted the success of the monolithic union of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces and the libertarian and unionist vocation of Venezuela before Latin America and the Caribbean.
The historic meeting in St. Vincent and the Grenadines last Thursday, December the 14th. That day will go down in the history of the Venezuelan peaceful diplomacy as a day when Venezuela's truth prevailed vis-à-vis Latin America and the Caribbean. A day of triumph for Venezuela's truth, for our libertarian vocation and unionist spirit, for our diplomatic capacity.
The Venezuelan president pointed out that it was fair and necessary to carry out the consultative referendum so that citizens could take a stance on the future of Guyana Essequibo.
Which was the first direct impact of the consultative referendum of December the 3rd. First impact that still has to be analyzed, especially by our people, in our families, in our communities. Later, when you're playing dominoes, that's where the most precious and valuable analysis is. The analysis of our people's conscience, to know that we are moving forward, that it was right and necessary to have the debate, to call for the referendum, and for popular sovereignty, to set the terms of the future of the Guyana Essequibo.
The Venezuelan president pointed out that a consensus was reached in St. Vincent and the Grenadines thanks to the historic step taken by the people and the Bolivarian National Armed Forces with the referendum of December 3rd.
Argyle Agreement for Dialogue and Peace. The title is conclusive, for dialogue and peace. And the communique should be read by all. You have read it, right? And was explained to the personnel. Explained. An agreement was reached that addresses this conjuncture, this situation. So I can say to the people and to the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, thank you for the historic step we took on December the 3rd. Thanks to the union of the people and the armed forces. Thanks to the power of the public institutions, the electoral power.
The peace delegations of the Colombian government and the National Liberation Army, ELN, met in Mexico for the closing of the 5th cycle of dialogues. After 13 days of talks, the ELN reportedly committed to suspend any kidnapping action in order to guarantee peace in Colombia. The closing ceremony of the dialogue cycle was presided over by the Mexican Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alicia Bárcena. During her speech, she recalled the importance of this meeting not only for peace in Colombia, but also for stability of the region. On Sunday in Chile, people go to the polls for a second referendum on a proposed new constitution drafted by the Constitutional Council. Polling stations open at 8 o'clock in the morning and will close at 6 o'clock in the evening local time. Some 15.4 million voters, among them 127,552 residing in 65 countries, are qualified to vote on this referendum to decide the latest version for a new Magna Carta drafted by the Constitutional Council. Electoral officials have urged people to exercise the vote in a peaceful manner without any violent incidents, and they have also reminded people that those who may choose not to vote are risking being fined anywhere from 32,000 to 192,000 pesos, equivalent to $37 and $221. Also in Chile, since early Sunday morning, people have been going to police stations to apologize for not voting in the constitutional referendum in a country where voting is mandatory. This has been the case despite the fact that the law only exempts from voting duty those who may be out of the country, those living over 200 kilometers away from polling stations, or those having a serious impediment duly proven before a competent judge. According to data provided by Chilean police, so far over 100,000 people have been excused from taking part in this Sunday's referendum. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The Israeli occupation army is intensifying its aggressions against the civilian population in Gaza. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, the occupation continues its siege of the hospitals in Gaza. The Health Ministry has denounced atrocities committed by the Tel Aviv forces during the last few days, such as taking the wounded and medical personnel out of the hospitals. It has also been reported that Israeli snipers destroyed the southern part of the Kamal Adwan hospital and fired at anyone moving inside the premises, preventing the entry and exit of medical teams and displaced people. The Israelis also shelled the Al-Sahaba clinic, which at present is the only maternity clinic in Gaza, and they have also attacked several ambulances transporting the injured. In the wake of the Israeli genocide in Kamal Adwan hospital, Palestinian authorities have called for an investigation into the events. Through eyewitnesses and journalists, they have been delving into the circumstances surrounding the massacre. Our correspondent Nur Harsin with the details.
After 4 days of the cutting of the network and internet here in southern Gaza, we are back reporting about what is happening here on the ground. Of course, the disturbing incident of what happened inside the Kamal Adwan hospital, the Palestinian Authority required an immediate investigation of what happened inside the Kamal Adwan hospital. The Israeli bulldozers entered the hospital, crushed the bodies of Palestinians who were inside the tents and buried them alive. Yes, this has happened, and journalists there in northern Gaza reported, eyewitnesses reported, photos and videos were published of the scene. Now Kamal Adwan Hospital is the only hospital that was operating in northern Gaza. It shut down. There is only one hospital that is operating for northern Gaza and central Gaza, which is the Al-Shifa Hospital. Medical sources inside the Al-Shifa Hospital since this morning said that 50 people were killed and arrived to the hospital. They also added that paramedics could not even reach the other bodies of people that were killed around and in northern Gaza and middle Gaza, central Gaza over the past hours. Here in southern Gaza, the Israeli warplanes continue striking several places, residential homes, streets, farms in Rafah, in Khan Yunis, in Deir al-Balah. Only here in Deir al-Balah, and since the morning, 12 people were killed. Nur Harrazin, teleSUR, Gaza.
The Palestinian Red Crescent denounced the onset of a famine of great proportions in the Gaza Strip due to the lack of food caused by the blockade and the Israeli attacks. Red Crescent representatives regretted that Gaza currently depends entirely on humanitarian aid, which, despite efforts by many countries, is still insufficient and delayed to tend to all those affected due to the blockades of Tel Aviv. In recent days, the World Food Programme revealed that half of the population in Gaza is starving. The Palestinian Red Crescent has also warned about the potential occurrence of an epidemic, as many people are sleeping on the streets amid a fertile environment for the rapid spread of disease. The Lebanese resistance Hezbollah carried out operations against the Israeli occupation forces stationed in the western sector of the border. In a released statement, Hezbollah confirmed it had attacked a bunker where Israeli soldiers were deployed in response to Israeli bombardments in the south of the country and in support of the people of Palestine. According to the statement, the action was carried out with appropriate weapons and caused injuries in the ranks of the Tel Aviv armed forces. The Lebanese resistance also reported an operation against an Israeli military force in the vicinity of Hanita position. On the other hand, the Tel Aviv fighter jets attacked the eastern outskirts of the city of Blida and 5 others. In Syria, authorities report looting of wheat, barley, and oil by the U.S. occupation in warehouses located in the town of Al-Jarubiha. Residents near the border with Iraq report that a U.S. convoy of 55 trucks loaded with wheat, barley, and oil entered Iraqi territory through the illegal Al-Walid crossing, in addition to at least 40 tanker trucks loaded with crude oil from the oil fields, driven to the U.S. bases located in Iraqi territory. It should be noted that Syria produced until 2011 more than 380,000 barrels of oil, covered the domestic market of wheat. The figures decreased after the constant U.S. looting. In Egypt, a group of 4 European lawmakers called on Sunday for a ceasefire in Gaza following their trip to the Rafah crossing to see how European aid is helping Palestinians. Lawmakers from France, Sweden, and Ireland, affiliated to the centrist parliamentary group Renew Europe, are among those participating in the call. Christophe Grudler, French lawmaker and head of the delegation, said progress is being made on the idea of a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, while Abril al-Sahlani, a Swedish lawmaker, said a ceasefire is urgently needed to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Al-Sahlani also called for pressure to be put on both sides in the war, particularly Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his far-right government, and called on the United States to join European calls for a ceasefire.
We found out that no matter how much we are going to send, it doesn't matter, because there is no ceasefire and there is no security. As long as there are bombs, Israeli bombs falling on the Palestinian people, the aid won't do its job. We might, give the food and they will be, for a while, full, but then they go out and they stay at home and they will be killed by the Israeli bombs.
Indonesians took to the streets to show their rejection of the United States and Europe following the genocide unleashed in Gaza. About 3,000 demonstrators reportedly filled the center of Jakarta in front of the guarded U.S. embassy carrying Palestinian and Indonesian flags. The protest was organized by the Indonesian Council of Mass Organizations, a Muslim conservative forum which urged Israel to stop its attacks against the Palestinians with chants. The rally began after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Saturday that Tel Aviv was committed to war against Hamas.
This is a way of concern for our family, the Palestinians, because this is a humanitarian issue, which is a global issue that we should all care about. Until now, physical colonialism throughout the world no longer exists except for Palestinians. So we have to fight this because it is contrary to human rights.
This is certain because it is explained in the Quran that Palestinians will be free, so we continue to enthusiastically speak out for them. Freedom for the Palestinians.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. For a short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Serbia, more than 6 million citizens are called to the polls to vote in Sunday's early parliamentary elections, where 8,000 polling stations open their doors at 7 a.m. local time. In these early elections, voters elect deputies to fill the 250 seats in parliament for a term of 4 years. Serbians also hold elections for the Assembly of the Northern Region of Vojvodina, as well as municipal elections in Belgrade and 64 other towns. Polling stations are expected to close at 8 p.m. local time, with early results expected to be announced a few hours later. Serbian citizens voiced the importance of voting as a way to achieve the changes the society wants to see.
You know, we all hope for something better. We'll see what happens. I think individually we can't do much. But if everybody decides the same thing, something will come about. So the decision is up to us.
I think it is time for Serbia to go full steam ahead. This means it should focus on youth, young people, education, and of course, discipline.
On Sunday, Chad citizens went to the polls to vote in a referendum for a new constitution. This is a crucial stepping stone towards scheduled elections next year, which could return the country to civilian rule. Mahamat Idris Deby was declared the head of state after his father's death in April 2021. Instead of following the Chadian constitution's line of succession, opposition political parties at the time called the handover a coup d'etat, but later agreed to accept Deby as interim leader for 18 months. However, last year the government announced it was extending transition for 2 more years, which led to protests across the country. The new constitution proposes a decentralized state. If it's accepted, elections should take place in October 2024. If it's rejected, there's likely a new referendum that will have to take place. In Sudan, fighting between the army and the rapid support forces reached the city of Wad Madani, where displaced people from the capital Khartoum had come in search of safe shelters. According to information from the Norwegian Refugee Council, Wad Madani should not be affected by the civil war in Sudan due to its dense population of 700,000 inhabitants and the 84,000 other refugees hosted in the region. In this regard, the entity pointed out that the city is a place of refuge for displaced people from Khartoum, including for humanitarian and medical evacuations. Civilians started to flee to neighboring states with Sudan, where their population is overburdened and with scarce resources. In Canada, authorities are on alert following the death of at least 6 people and more than 150 confirmed salmonella cases. Canada's Public Health Agency confirmed the presence of the bacteria in 8 provinces, including British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland, with Quebec reporting the highest number of cases. The majority of those affected are children and senior citizens, who were infected between mid-October and the end of November of this year. In Spain, a collision between 2 passenger trains in Malaga injured 13 people. The accident occurred between the routes covering Sevilla-Malaga as a result of the impact one of the streetcars overturned. The more than 250 passengers traveling on board both trains were evacuated in the vicinity of the region. The railway management company reported that the railway infrastructure manager, staff, and mechanics are working on the repair of the railway units. Hundreds of cyclists dressed as Santa Claus cycled through the streets of Rome's historic center on Sunday to raise money for charity. The Santa's parade started from the Colosseum, passed through the Imperial Forum, Piazza Venezia, Via del Corso, the main shopping streets in the center of Rome, and finally arrived in the characteristic district of Trastevere. The aim of the event was to raise funds for La Casa de Peter Pan, or Peter Pan's House, a charity project that offers help and support to children with cancer and their families. We have come to the end of this news brief, but before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share newscasts and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.